Zoom recording. There we go. We are now officially recording the session. And we do hope that you'll use the chat box as a resource, a space to ask questions or to make comments, and also to share resources if there's some resources that you know of that you'd like to share with the group. I just want to give a little introduction about CAP, or Colorado After School Partnership. We are part of the 50 statewide networks, and we are here to bring after school professionals together to talk about the work, the field. As I said, we started in 2014 through the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation, and we are part of a larger network. There's a network in every state, and so we are the state network for Colorado. And our focus, policy and partnership development, sustainability, and quality. You know, if you visit our website, you can learn more about that. If you ever want to get involved, we do have action teams for all of those, and we love to bring on new people for that. We also offer professional development, coffee with CAP. We're definitely expanding what we do, and we're excited to work with all of you. And oh, I did want to mention that we have Dana Scott. She is one of our partners, and she's with the Colorado Department of Education. Hello, Dana. Good morning. I think she's on. Let's see. Where is she? Oh, I don't think she's joined us yet. So at some point, she'll be on there. All right. And now I'm going to turn it over to Valerie Bass, who is our network lead. Valerie, take it away.
Well, good morning, everyone. We have a pretty full schedule here for you today, but hope that you will, again, as Megan suggested, unmute if you have questions for the presenters. And at the end, we have about 15 minutes in case there's just other debriefing you would like to do around any of the challenges or successes that you're having in reopening your after-school programs or working virtually. So to begin today's Coffee with CAP, I'd like to introduce Debbie Gray. She's with the Quality and Technical, she is a Quality and Technical Assistance Manager with the Office of Early Childhood, works with the Colorado Shines Licensing Division, and she will give us a quick update on the provider portal and other relevant information on reopening. Debbie, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. I love the thumbs up. Thank you. So I put one of the items that Valerie had asked that I talk about today was our Colorado Shines portal. So I put a couple of links in the chat box. And the first link is directly to the portal. And I'm not sure if we can bring that up on the screen. If not, I can just talk about the portal, but we are asking.
Here, working on it.
You know, I get it.
Here we go. Okay.
Thank you.
I'll keep working on it. Here it is. Okay, here we go.
I'll keep talking. Oh, there. That doesn't look quite right. Can you refresh that and see? So it's wanting you to log into Salesforce first.
All right.
Typically,
go
you
to
should
the main.
do that. So the other right there is a different guidance that I was going to talk about. But let me just click on this myself and see. So when I click on this, I get to our Colorado Shines page. So if you go to coloradoshines.com, you can get to it that way too.
All right.
There, that's it. Thank you. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So with coloradoshines.com, if you click on see the latest on the COVID-19 for childcare providers, I think we can get to the portal from there. To register your status on the Colorado Shines website. So I think you see this little, it says click here. I think if you click right there, that should take you right to the portal. Yeah, let's try that. Yes. Okay. So hopefully the link I gave you takes you right there, but if it doesn't, just go to coloradoshines.com. This is where we would like you to register your status. And what we do with that is obviously we want to try to collect as much data as possible on what programs are open and what programs are not running right now. So you go in there and you can update your status as often as you need to. So if you were closed and then you've decided to reopen, and you know, if for some reason you need to close again, you can go back in there and re-update your status. So that's a quick and easy thing to do. Someone had asked me about statistics and what we know so far. The data that I got was more on centers and homes, but right now we have about 1,451 centers that are open and 1,687 homes that are open. We haven't had a whole lot of home providers close, just 125. But as you all know, where we're the most short is with our school age. So we are, especially for school age providers, asking that they go in and register so we have a little bit better understanding of what we're looking at this summer and even going into fall as school districts are deciding you know, how they're going to be running their classrooms this year. Is really going to impact school age childcare providers. So we're trying to get as much data as we can on that. So if you could update your status, that would be great. And then the other thing that I thought maybe people would want to know a little bit about is just to go over again some of the guidance that the governor has given recently on childcare and kind of the history on that. So the other link that I put in there is the Safer at Home guidance that the governor issued on June 1st for children's day camps and youth sport camps. There's been a lot of questions on this. So for Office of Early Childhood, we've always given school age programs kind of one license that's for a school age program, whether that be a summer only program, whether that's a mobile program, whether that's a building-based program, a before and after school program. So it's been a little bit confusing for providers because there's a little bit different guidance that's out. So this guidance, if you scroll down a little bit, this is the guidance that came out on June 1st, and it's a little bit different because this is for day camps, including mobile and outdoor camps. And so the governor's office is distinguishing those a little bit differently from the before and after school programs. Are most of the school age programs, your school age programs today, are you guys more before and after, or do you have some seasonal programs that are just running in the summer?
Do you want them to reply that in the chat box, Debbie?
Well, or if you want to answer that, that's fine too. I was just curious because there is a little bit of difference in the guidance. So if you're a school age program that's building based that runs before and after or even just all day long in the summer, then the governor has allowed those programs to go back to full capacity, but you still need to do the social distancing and you still need to take precautions with the face coverings and the diligent hand washing. If you're what we call a seasonal day camp, including those mobile programs or an outdoor based only program, if you scroll down a little bit more, it tells you what the guidance is. And that the governor is still asking that those camps only have 10 per group. And if you're going to go outside, you can have up to 25 children outside at one time. So the guidance is a little bit different right now. We're hoping that in the weeks to come, the governor will issue additional guidance that allows these programs to go back to their full capacity as well. We certainly recognize the economic impact that has financially on the program. So I was trying to look in your chat boxes to see, are most of your programs kind of run from the school districts then, Valerie? Or are you?
It's a variety. It's nonprofit, community-based, school district, licensed, and then those that do not have to be licensed.
Like a single skill, kind of a youth camp? Okay. So that is sort of the main difference that I wanted to point out right now with anyone who's licensed with a school age license. There's still a little bit of difference between how many kids you can have in your capacity. Does that make sense to everybody, or do you want me to kind of go through that again? All the guidance is here in this document that I sent you a link to. But essentially, if you're a building-based program, the school age programs that are run out of a building have always been allowed to run, and then they've been allowed to go back to their full capacity as of June 4th. It's just those seasonal ones or the ones that are mobile. We have some camps that, you know, they meet maybe at the park and they put the kids on a bus and they go to different field trips all day long. It's those camps that the governor has really decided we only want 10 kids, because we're not really sure right now what the kids can do all day, because a lot of these businesses are not open. Any questions on that? I usually, people are usually a little bit confused by that guidance, but it seems like anything in the chat. Okay, great.
And we will be sure to follow up with all these links. Megan is great about communicating after these Coffee with Caps, so the links that were shared by all of our presenters in that.
Okay, great. Also, I could give you a link to our main web page too, and we have a lot of frequently asked questions. How you social distance, what kinds of activities we suggest that you can do with kids to promote social distancing. Definitely pushing that outdoor time. As we all know, the risk is much lower when we're outside, and so we have a lot of great information about social distancing tips. So I'll put that in the chat box right now too, and then if you have questions later, Megan, that come up, you can definitely email me, and I can kind of listen to the rest of your meeting if anything else comes up.
Thank you, Debbie. I did want to say in our last Coffee with Cap, the topic was reopening.
Yeah.
And we did have a couple programs that had reopened, talk about the steps that they've gone through, and and we shared some of the regulations as well. And I saw that someone in the chat box was wanting more specifics, so I can definitely reshare. And we definitely used your website a lot to share out the rules around reopening. So
okay.
Cool.
And then healthy childcare also with CDPHE. So we've been partnering with CDPHE pretty much every day, having discussions. So licensing and the health department and healthy childcare put together a toolkit that I would suggest providers use as they're thinking about reopening. And then right now, the Office of Early Childhood, we're also putting together an additional toolkit that should be out in the next couple of days. So I'll put that link real quick to the toolkit in there, as well as the link to our website.
Thank you, Debbie. Are there any questions? You can unmute yourself or add a question to the chat box for Debbie at this time. Okay, well, thank you so much, Debbie. And now
Sure,
we're going to go on to Femi Vance, who joined American Institutes of Research 3 years ago. She researches and evaluates out-of-school time programs and provides technical assistance to youth development professionals. She has expertise in youth program quality, social and emotional learning, evaluation capacity building, and skill building in youth programs. Femi will begin with additional information on reopening sites, followed by resources for working virtually with families and youth. Thank you, Femi, for joining us today.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. I am based in San Diego, so it's a little bit earlier here for me than it is for you all. Also, thank you for that great introduction. You saved me some breath. I was going to say some of those things. I am a researcher at AIR. The full name is American Institutes for Research, and we are a nonprofit research and evaluation firm, and our mission is to generate and use rigorous evidence that contributes to a a better and more equitable world. As Valerie said, I have resources both on reopening and then thinking about engaging students and family in this virtual world that we're constantly living in. I know that we don't have a lot of time together, so if I talk too fast, let me know. I'll try to slow down. I just want to make sure everyone has their time to shine. So I'll start.
Femi, it's Megan. I'm going to make you the host so you can share your screen.
Okay.
Would you like to do that?
Yep.
Here we go.
That's great.
You are now the host.
Great. Let me see if it'll let me pick the screen I want to share. Great. All right, I have two screens, so it's nice when it allows me to pick which one I want to share. You should be seeing something that says AIR recognizing the role of after school and summer programs. Is that what you're seeing? Thumbs up if you are. Shake. Okay, great. So recently we released this brief that is really about the role of after school and reopening. And since we started the conversation with reopening, I thought it would be fitting to share this first. As you can tell from what you see on the screen, what I like about this brief is it puts front and center what after school programs have to offer in reopening efforts. Mainly, we're providing safe and developmentally rich settings. We are trusted partners of communities and families, and we're basically can be a hub of networking to other resources that families and students might need at this time. And although many folks might know this, at this time, I think there needs to be a reminder. I think that this, in particular, this brief will be useful for after-school programs, individual programs, as well as larger youth-serving organizations that are in discussion with their partners about how to get a seat at the table around reopening. At the very end of this brief, we have a list of action items specifically for after-school programs and school leaders about how to build partnerships around reopening. So that's resource one. I just wanted to close that reopening conversation. And then I'd like to move on to talk a little bit about resources around specifically for after school program leaders or facilitators. I'm not group leaders, whatever term you collectively use for those who have youth facing roles, how they can be engaging with young people in this virtual context. Let's start. I'm going to start with I'm going to put this actually in the chat box because I don't think this was one of the links that I shared. But I want to start with a resource from the David P. Weichert Center for Youth Program Quality. Some of you might actually be familiar with this organization. They're a nonprofit. They do extensive research and technical assistance around developing program quality, and they're offering right now some free, let's see, there we go. They're offering some free training in the link. Oops, sorry, Megan, I only sent that to you and I meant to send it to everyone. In the box, that links you to all of their trainings, which you can see here, it's pulling up. So this is a full list of their trainings. I actually only wanted to point you to one today, but I highly encourage you to take some time to peruse what they're offering because they might really be useful for you and they do some good training. So the one that I wanted you to know is, it's called, let me see if I can find it. It is called High Quality Practices in Engaging Youth Virtually. It's free, and in that webinar, they're talking about strategies and tools to support staff to deliver some engaging learning experiences for young people. Then I want to take you to the Collaborative for Academic and Social Emotional Learning. If you haven't heard of them, they are probably one of the most prominent organizations that are providing resources for promoting social emotional learning in all learning environments. So that's in school, out of school, museums, libraries. They're pretty environment agnostic. And they are currently hosting a webinar series. I have attended a few of their webinars, which I think have been great. They have a lot of interesting topics that they're discussing. One that's coming up is around SEL as a lever for social justice, which is very timely. But I wanted to point you to two. Here is, let me give you the list to give you the link to the full list here. Again, I encourage you to peruse as you will. But I wanted to point you to two, one of which, this one's called Distance Learning Across the Education Sector. And this, again, is a good place to think about how can we promote engaging learning experiences, and it isn't just set in one learning context. So they have private, charter, and public schools. And so while it is school-based, I think there's going to be some nuggets of wisdom for folks who are working in after school world as well. They have one more that I think is of interest. I think this one I actually joined. It's called Let's Listen to Our Young People. What supports do they need? And I thought it was fascinating there because they also had two young people, and this is primarily for high schools because they used a survey, so they wanted to make sure their young people were old enough to provide good answers to some survey questions. But it was really great to hear some teenagers talk about, like, what is it that I need during this time? So that can inform your thoughts as you're thinking about forming some activities or outreach for your youth and families. But again, the whole list, I think, of webinars can offer something for everybody. Am I moving too fast? I'm still okay here. You guys are still with me? Okay, great. And then I want to take you to this website called Education Reimagined. They're a nonprofit that really focuses on using learner-centered approaches. They offer an extensive list of resources for both educators and parents. This list is under their distance learning during the COVID-19 pandemic. And again, I'll say there are plenty of resources for everyone here. I want to point out one that if you are looking for content, you can look under For Learning, and that gives you a bunch of different things that you could do with young people. For parents and families is where you'll find resources for parents to support the learning of their young people during this period of time. And then for educators, and this is sort of a smattering of things, which does include how do I make remote learning engaging. One of those resources they have here that I thought I would highlight is a guide to authentic learning at home. This is for educators specifically, and it does talk about, like, what are some questions that I can ask both youth and families to get an understanding of what they need. And then they have some guiding principles about how to conduct virtual learning. So I thought that would be of interest. And then again, just quickly, you can click on any of these three here and it jumps right to the place that you need it to. So they make it pretty easy to navigate. Okay, so that sort of wraps up the resources around how do I do remote learning well for any of the folks who are serving youth directly. Now I'll move into some resources that you can share with your parents around supporting their child's learning. I know that right now summer is like happening basically. And parents might be like, whew, I can get a break. But it's also, I think, our role to remind them that summer is just as important as the school year, in that if we don't continue pushing young people to learn, then they lose some ground before they go back to school. So we want to ensure that we're continuing to give parents some things that will help them promote their child's learning at home. A great resource is Learning Heroes. Oh, I didn't hear. Let me go to their main website before I show you that resource. I love how fun this website looks. It just draws you in with all the fun characters and superheroes. And Learning Heroes is a nonprofit that is really geared towards supporting learning across the board, but they're giving out some great resources about how to support learning at home. There's a section both for parents and for students, which is really great. So here you can click and one of the things, how did I get there? Don't remember how I got there actually. Sorry about that, but I did get to a resource called Keep Calm Learning is On. And I think even if you are able to show this to parents in a conversation or send it to them via email, this is a great resource of like just some quick 5 things that we can do that can continue to push my child to learn. And not all of them are connected to being right in front of a computer, which I think is important since we're sitting through a lot of time right in front of a computer. So namely, one of those things, 2 of those things are like turning off the news and being able to talk, and enjoying family time. Like, what are some things that you can incorporate that are still learning, but are not connected to the computer? So that's Learning Heroes. And there is the next 2 things. I think I'll just talk about them instead of showing you. They're not as exciting as the other things that I've showed you. Well, it's fairly easy for me to show, so I guess I can do that. So AIR also has a resource that's called Building Positive Conditions for Learning at Home. And it is just a quick brief on some strategies that parents can use. It's to support learning, and it's grounded in the science of learning development, which is basically a body of research that has been thinking very critically about the best way to promote young people's learning and help them thrive. We have it available in English and Spanish, so you can share it with families in the language that you think is most appropriate for them. That is just the homepage to information about the brief, but this is the actual brief. And then we have a parent survival guide to schooling during COVID-19, which from Johns Hopkins Institute for Education Policy, which I find the title really inspiring. Like, I need, this is something like I'm going through the jungle with education and I need my survival guide. But again, it has some tips. Some of this overlaps with some of the things that Learning Heroes offers. So if you know that parents have more time to dig into something, you might offer them this guide. But if they need something quick to look at, I would refer them to the Learning Heroes resource. And then the very last resource that I want to touch on is just, it's around trauma-informed practices. And the reason that I thought this would be really timely is that at this time, one of the ways which After School can partner with schools is being able to catch things early, whether it's a student that may be struggling, whether it's a parent that may be struggling, and being able to connect them with the resources that they might need. And part of that means really understanding what is trauma and and what is my role in helping to support those who may be experiencing trauma. And this is actually a resource that came out of the Los Angeles County Office of Education. It was authored actually by a colleague of mine who works with Development Without Limits and has deep experience in trauma-informed care. So I find it to be very informative. Two things I like to highlight about this is if you go to page 8, if you are thinking about doing any sort of training with your staff around trauma, page 8 is a good introduction of what is trauma. It goes on to even talk about like what do we know right now about the extent of trauma experienced by young people. That's a good place to start. And then on page 11 here, really start talking about the role of expanded learning and what are the assets that we can lean on to address trauma that young people are bringing with them as they come to our programs. And that is all. That was a lot, I know. Please let me know any questions that you have.
So please unmute or add any of your questions you might have for Femi in the chat box. Well, I'm not hearing any. Wow, Femi, that was an overwhelming amount of information that, again, we will be sure to share this with our after-school providers so that they can take the time to really digest all this wonderful information that you have just shared. Thank you so much for being with us, and I hope you can stay on the call in case.
My pleasure.
Okay, great. Okay, so now I'm going to, our format always, what we're trying to do is to try to bring resources that nationally, like in this case, AIR has to share, and then state resources such as what Debbie Johnson from the Office of Early Childhood shared with us. And then we always want to bring a local perspective on what's happening. And so today we have Manuel Banks III joining us from Scholars Unlimited. This is his first year as their new manager of community partnership and recruitment. Prior to this year, he had a career in the sports and entertainment industry spanning over 20 years. Throughout his career, he has won numerous awards and has been recognized by national organizations for his work in diversity, equity, and inclusion. In his role at Scholars Unlimited, he is responsible for establishing partnerships with diverse organizations and recruiting candidates for open positions. Manny, please share with us how you are engaging family and youth in this virtual world at Scholars Unlimited.
Thank you, Valerie. When I signed on in January, took the position in January, I thought that this summer would be totally different. Scholars Unlimited, we've been around for over 27 years. We have after-school programming in schools in Westminster, Denver, and Aurora public schools. Originally, it's supposed to be in-person programming at these different sites. So the last month, we've had to pivot due to COVID-19. So we have gone to a virtual programming, the summer programming. This summer, it will be a 4-week programming starting June 22nd to July 17th, 3 days of live programming, 2 days of challenges. The platform that we're using is Stronger Minds. Originally, we're going to use Zoom. But now we're switching over to Google Meets. And the programming is Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, the live programming. Then Wednesday and Fridays, kids will have activities on their own. Friday, we will have guest speakers through my connections in the sports industry. I'm trying to get some Olympians, former NBA players and current NBA players, but that's all depending on if they come back in Orlando. And so I'm trying to give children and families the opportunities to continue learning virtually. We at Scholars Unlimited, we understand that kids have a limited attention span, especially during the summer when it comes to learning online. So we have our programming designed from 60 to 90 minutes in different classrooms. And so we have paraprofessionals, teachers, and youth development instructors assigned to each classroom. And so we're really excited, pumped about this program. It's something different, it's something challenging for all of us, because as I said, when I got hired in January, um, I was supposed to be doing in-person hiring and in-person programming, but through the staff that we have at Scholars Unlimited, we were able to pivot and do something that we're all proud of, something that families in the Denver and the surrounding areas will enjoy. Um, and a little bit about the schedule, I'll read some of the schedule. Monday, we have arts and craft. Tuesday, physical activities. Wednesday, Code Spire activities. Thursday, STEM challenges. Friday, the virtual field trips. Everything revolves around STEM and SEL, social emotional learning for us. Again, we understand that there's a need for children to do something during the summer because a lot of kids got let out early due to COVID-19. And so we're here as a resource for families in Denver metro area. Feel free to ask me any questions. If I don't know the answer, I will find the person that does. Keep in mind, I've only been at the job since January, and this has been a whirlwind couple of months. Let me look at the chat box. Any questions?
So if there's no questions, could the group just share what you're offering online, virtually, and tips that you might have to keep youth engaged?
I actually just got a question. How are the arts and crafts done? Some of the arts and crafts we will video record some of those demonstrations for kids to do on the off days. We do have instructors, teachers, paras, and youth development instructors. Way I categorize the different teachers, their specialties, especially the youth development instructors and the paras. So the paras have experience in arts and craft, teachers as well. I've grouped them in that different group. Some have more experience with STEM and so on. And so the schedule is that the kids will experience arts and craft, STEM, and other programs throughout the week. Our youth development instructors, they play an important role because they're going in and out of classrooms, making sure kids are attentive. They also, one of the duties that they have is that they will do a lot of pre-recorded videos about arts and crafts. They'll work with the teachers and the paraprofessionals. So we're trying to do everything, a lot of stuff up front. And so when a teacher clicks, for instance, if they're in a Google Meet meeting, they'll be talking as we're talking now, or I'm talking now, then they can hit a button and then that will show the video and it will instruct the kids how to do the arts and craft. And so it's a lot of pre-work we've done the last couple of weeks. We've done the program that we have, the virtual programming, typically it's a couple of months of planning. We have done it in less than a month and a half. So we've had to do a lot in a very short amount of time. Sorry, Valerie.
No. I was also wondering, you said you switched from Zoom to Google Meets. Was there a reasoning behind that was going to just work out better for you?
Literally, I found out yesterday afternoon. And so I knew this question was going to come up. I don't know the exact reason why. I just got an email, be prepared to pivot. And so after I get off to this call, I'm actually going to have another call via Zoom to figure out why we're switching. I think it may have something to do with access. The kids, because we have Google Chromebooks, and some of the kids access through Denver Public Schools and the Wi-Fi. So that's what I suspect. So I will let the group know, because I was all prepared for Zoom, and so it was a surprise to me.
Manny, I had a question.
Go right ahead.
Manny, did you all go through some training to learn how to provide learning online and
Oh, yeah.
how to keep youth engaged through a screen?
Yeah, we partner with Stronger Minds. They have the experience of engaging children and families through online learning. So we partner with them, and we actually have been going through training the last couple of weeks. That's why we pushed our start date for virtual summer learning back. Typically, it's the first or second week of June, but we pushed it back a couple of weeks because we want to make sure that all our staff, site staff or classroom staff, and central office staff are prepared. And the thing about the program is that central office staff will be a part of this experience. We will actually, I was about to say Zoom, but it's actually Google Chat now, be silent observers to make sure everything's going correctly with teachers, paraprofessionals, YDIs. And so we're learning as we go, but central staff and site staff have already had their training. So we're ready to go. Thank you.
And Manny, I have one other question, and that is around your Google Meets and that. Would it be possible if a after-school program wanted to just join in to see how you are putting this all together in Google Meets? Would it be possible for another program to just join in, just like how you model sometimes in person in a classroom, but this would be modeling online?
I have to get approval, but I suspect that the answer is probably going to be yes, because at the end of the day, it's about serving the families and the kids. What we're doing, except for the lesson plans, isn't proprietary. Anyone can do it. And my personal belief is the more options that kids have, the better they will be going to school in the fall. Fingers crossed, everything goes back the way it was. In the chat box, I'll put my email and my cell phone number because I'm working part-time from the office, part-time from home. And if anyone has any questions, they can send me an email, and I'll make some of the documents available to the group so you see the program set up. And I'll just send a quick text message to my supervisor just to make sure it's okay. I suspect she won't have any issue with it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, I'm going to put the Stronger Minds link in the chat box as well.
So I'm looking at Shannon. It looks like you made a note that you're transferring your summer camp planning into a virtual environment that families can request. Could you unmute yourself and sort of share a little bit more about that?
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so I work with Jeffco SAE, and for the summer, our camps were canceled for the summer because we are a school-based program. So what the program directors, we were trying to find a way to maintain contact with our families and kind of not lose that connection. So most of us have our own individual ways of maintaining contact with the families by doing online crafts, which is why I was asking about the arts and crafts. Like once a week, we have some directors that'll do that. The other two co-directors that I work with for the summer, we have come up with a plan to every week we're going to send in like a weekly activity template for different science activities, basically what we planned for the summer, and we're kind of tweaking it to accommodate the families. But instead of email blasting, 100, 300 something families, we went to each family and asked them that if they wanted to join to let us know, and we created a separate distribution list so that we're not frustrating all the families that probably found other care for the summer. So, and so far so good. I mean, the families that responded were really excited you know, that they can just have something that we'll send out a supply list prior to the week, something very simple. We don't want families to have to go spend more money and leave their house. So just stuff they have at home and family time and get some outdoor adventures done. And so far we've had a lot of good response. So it's been good. Oh,
Valerie, you're on mute.
I keep doing that. Shannon, would it be possible for you to share your email information in the chat box in case anyone has any questions about how you're going about making this change?
Yeah, I can. Again, I'll pass it through my supervisor, which I think she's part of the group right now, just to make sure that's okay. But I would love to do that.
Okay,
you know,
great.
community involvement.
Great. And Stephanie, I see that you had shared about your learning platform. Would you like to share more information with the group?
Sure. I just thought that there was a question earlier about, you know, what academic supports you're providing for students. And, you know, we really just leaned into what we were doing prior to this catastrophe, if there's another term for it. But our kids, we just want to keep them engaged, and time and text is really important to us. We have some amazing staff who connect really well with kids, and so instead of, you know, having certified staff in our after school program teaching reading, we just continue to give them opportunities to practice. And so that's what that Mayan, it's a digital library. Our kids continue to be able to do that. We can still progress monitor. We do lots of, you know, emails to families to keep them up to breast of their progress. Our teams are out in the field delivering prizes to kids to celebrate their hard work. And really it's about relationships, right? So our kids want to see their site directors, and if they show up with ice cream, that's a bonus. But really, you know, hanging over the fence and saying, thank you so much. We appreciate you continuing to work hard. Keep it up. We're proud of you. That's what our families and our kids need, is just some reassurance and then connection. Our Imagine Learning is sort of our language acquisition program for our emerging bilinguals. And so our kids were able to continue to access that. Imagine Math is a new program that we're piloting this summer, so we'll be ready to go in the fall. But again, those were things that our students already had access to. I can tell you one of the things that was successful that we were sort of surprised about. In Peak, we have 9 sites across the southern end of our district, and engagement's been a little bit of a struggle. I think our kids are just tired of being in front of a computer, as many of us are. So in our activities, we were starting to collaborate with other sites, and kids were getting to meet students from other schools, and they love it. They were immediately making friends. They were connecting on Fortnite. We weren't quite sure how we felt about that, but at the end of the day, our kids were happy and smiling and excited to meet somebody new. And that's been really powerful, and it was good for our team. I think morale for my team, right now they're struggling. They miss their kids. They use the term grieving for being away from them. We get to see them at our mobile meal distribution site, so that's been good. But you know, it's been traumatizing for our kids and our families and our staff. They miss being in community with each other. So whatever we can do to bring them together is what we're doing. They do little virtual scavenger hunts. They draw things in their house and share it. So our stuff isn't so much about being really rigorous, but it's about connection and being in community with each other, and just virtually wrapping our hands around our kids and our families. That's what we're trying to do. So. And then our virtual field trips. We've been doing some of those too. We visited the fjords last week. Again, they got to meet friends and family, or friends from other schools. They did a little feedback form, and the winners got ice cream delivered to their house. So we're doing everything we can to just stay connected and let our kids know we care about them. and we need to put eyes on them as much as possible. Many of our kids come from really beautiful, loving, caring households, but some of our kids are in situations that we are concerned about. And so we just want them to know that there's adults out there who still love and care about them.
So are there any questions for Stephanie? And if you are going to type into the chat box any questions and that, I just want, Stephanie reminded me that she was talking about her meal distribution area, and we've been, one of our partners with CAP is CSU Extension, and we have built a STEM mobile lab on environmental studies in partnership with CSU Extension 4-H. And so we're trying to figure out, once we're allowed to deploy it, about how there might be the potential to take it out to meal distribution sites, so that there could be a STEM presentation while they're picking up their meals. So we're still trying to figure out on some of these hands-on type of opportunities, how do you do it in the pandemic world and that, but just to let you know that that will be another resource coming hopefully in the next month. I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat box. I'm just going to open it up if there is anything anyone wants to ask, not even around our conversation today, but just in general with after school. Any questions that you might have, that the group here, that's what we're all about, is a group solving problems together.
So I can answer Manuel's question about the virtual field trip. Last week was our first one. And I can send you, Manuel, and I know Jenny also, as we update them each week, we can send you sort of the plans. So I have a site director whose whole responsibility right now is in planning those virtual field trips and then creating an extended activity after it. So we had some struggles on our first one because our kids, one of the hiccups is that many of our kids all sign in at different times. So it's hard to like have a go time and be all ready, all hands on deck at the same time. So we're kind of strategizing around that, where the beginning of the sort of field trip allows them to sort of get connected to each other, get an overview of what's happening. And then they do the link to the field trip and then come back. And then we do some debriefing activities. Again, that extension idea that they do some work on their own and then get to come back. Really trying to lean into our kids being able to be the drivers of their experience and to be able to be in control of sort of their own learning in a space that makes sense. And so we can definitely communicate out to you some of our lessons learned and our challenges, so you don't have to go through some of the angst we did in our first one.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Stephanie, I'll ask you the same question. Would you be willing to share out your contact information to this group in case they do have any more questions? Okay, she already shared it in the chat box. And again, we will be sharing more information with a follow-up email that Megan will be putting together for us. Okay, I'm looking for any other questions in the chat box. Unmute yourself if you have any further questions. I just want to thank Debbie and Femi and Manny for joining us today and sharing all these wonderful resources. I'm going to let Megan take it over on additional activities that we have available through CAP.
Yes. Let me see if I can get this to, there we go. Okay. Yeah, we did want to share some of the upcoming events, trainings, and some resources that we have available. Our next Coffee with CAP is going to be June 30th at 9 a.m. And that one's going to be about telling your program story, especially right now, things that you're doing, and elevating that, getting that out to the public so the public really understands all that after school and summer programs are doing right now to help youth and families. So we're going to be focusing on that. And we do have several speakers for that one as well. We try to have somebody from that provides a national perspective, and then a state perspective, and then a more local perspective. So we've got some different people joining us for that. We have 2 free virtual SAL trainings coming up. And we also have these wonderful summer activity guides on our website if you're ever looking for activities. We've got these well put together activities that can be done virtually, can be done in your programs. And we just uploaded a whole bunch more. So those are available. And there are some that are specifically on virtual safety. So guidance for families on keeping their kids safe while they're, engaging virtually, as well as some suggestions for staff. We have, as part of the 50 statewide network, we put together some wonderful resources on anti-racism and equity to get the conversations going in your classrooms, and talking about bias and George Floyd and everything that's happening right now. So, and again, I'll share a link for all these resources in just a minute in the chat box. And then we have lots of different ways you can get involved with the Colorado After School Partnership. We've got our action teams. Well, we also have a link that I'll share out too about it's like a forum to share your story. And we'd love to hear, everything you talked about today. Like, we'd love to share that out beyond this meeting. And this meeting was recorded, and I will share a link to that once it's ready to go. And I also wanted to say we have a couple of trainings. We're working on some more trainings. We're working on a series about anti-racism, equity, and understanding your own bias. It's going to be probably a 3 or 4-part series that we're looking to launch in July, and that will be a free experience to do. And then we also we're going to do a trauma-informed care training coming up here in the next couple of months as well. So the best way to know all that is our Facebook, our Twitter, and also our email list. We use MailChimp, so check your spam if you joined, but that's a good way to keep informed. So that is it.
Yeah, we're over by about a minute on my clock, but we want to thank everyone for joining us today, and especially anyone that has more information to share. You can contact Megan or myself. It's very simple, long emails, but it's Megan@ColoradoAfterschoolPartnership.org and Valerie@ColoradoAfterschoolPartnership.org. So thank you again for joining us, and have a great rest of your week. Take care.